Good evening, everyone. Yeah, we are glad to have you all here this evening at our resume masterclass. Let me introduce you to our speaker. We have Gowri Ram, ma'am.
Hi, do you want me to introduce myself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to Anusharaj and the SSN College of Engineering for arranging an amazing virtual session on resume creation. I'm so excited to be here. I have a really jam-packed session planned for all of you and for all of those who have managed to be here, like who have managed to come and attend the masterclass. A big kudos to all of you because what I understand from that is you are very serious about your career and you're very invested in landing a job of your dreams. And I really, really Yeah, I think someone just muted me. To talk a little bit about myself, my name is Gowri. I'm a resume creation expert who has created resumes for over 100 professionals from 15 different parts of the 15 different countries. I have experience training college students all the way to experienced professionals, CXO positions, helping them create amazing resumes which meet the modern hiring standards and speeding up the interview offers by 3x. So that's a little bit about me. I'm not going to talk too much because I know we have like a 1 hour session planned and I have a lot of things to teach you. So I'm going to dive straight into the masterclass. Anusha, should I do that or is there something else that you want to share?
Um, yes, ma'am. In a minute, I'll be sharing the Slido link where the audience can post their questions so that at the end you can address them.
Yes, absolutely. So I have a Q&A session planned for the end. So whatever questions you have, I will be answering those towards the end of the session as well. Perfect. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. We can.
All right, let's get started. Today's masterclass is all about how to transform your resume into an interview magnet. I'm sure most of you are either towards the final year of your college, or maybe you're in the first year also, but you want to take up either internship opportunities or full time jobs. And you want to know how to make your resume really stand out from the other candidates who are applying and thereby increase your chances of getting hired. So, this is what today's masterclass is going to be all about, which is basically how to make sure your resume is super impactful, stands out, and really catches the eye of the person, of the decision makers you're sending a resume to. And for being here with me, and this session, it really shows your commitment towards making a difference in your career. And I really want to appreciate you for being here. And as a token of appreciation for all those who have agreed to come to today's masterclass, I have a free gift for you. So if you tag just either a photo or a video of the masterclass of any slide in today's masterclass. Let's say something new that you learn in today's masterclass. You can tag me on Instagram using my handle resumes by Gowri. Take a photo or video and tag me. And then I will be providing a free audit or review of your resume and tell you exactly what is the problem, what are the mistakes, and how to improve those. So this is a gift which I would like to extend to all of you who are in the masterclass. I don't want to take out the phones in between the session. Maybe if you come across any slide where you're learning something new, you can click a photo and maybe post it later, and you'll be eligible for this gift from me. Right. Now, a well-written resume. Why is it very important to have a resume that stands out? Because a well-written resume always makes a positive impression on your potential employer. And if you're interested in a job opening, the first document that any company asks you to send across is your resume, because that is the deciding factor whether or not you are selected for an interview and eventually a job. That is the power of an impactful resume. So, in today's session, I'm going to teach you how to create a resume that showcases your qualifications, your skills, and your experiences in a compelling and professional way. Let me just say that I'm going to teach you a lot of things, the A to Z of resume writing and crafting an impactful resume. I'm going to be teaching you today. It's going to be a jam-packed session, so make sure you have your notebook, or if you're someone who likes taking photos and then going through it later, do that as well. But anything that works for you. But we're going to cover a lot of ground here on resume writing. So let me show you an overall view of what we're going to be covering in today's session. The first thing is we're going to be breaking a lot of resume myths out there, like what a resume is not and what a resume actually is. Then from there, I'm going to show you all about what functional resumes are and why it's important to know how to create functional resumes. After that, I'll be teaching you all about the ATS software and resume formatting tips to make sure your resume gets selected by the ATS software. From there, we'll be going through each and every important resume sections that you need to have in your resume in order to make it impactful. From there, I'll be showing you how to brand your resume to make sure it really stands out of the competition. After which, I will be answering all the questions you have for me, and we'll be ending it by, I've already told you the surprise, it's not a surprise anymore, but I'll be ending you with ways in which we can keep in touch so that even after the masterclass, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me as well. All right, let's get started. So before I dive in to each of these amazing sections I have planned for you in today's class, what I want to remind you is to keep all distractions away for the next 1 hour, because as I said, it's going to be a lot of information, many of which I'm sure is going to be new learning for you. So keep all distractions away, close all the unnecessary tabs in your laptop, and give me your full dedicated attention for the next 1 hour. Right? So let's start with talking about breaking the resume myths. Typically, what I mean by that is what a resume is not. Especially now across the internet, there are so many articles, there are so many YouTube videos talking about or teaching different things about resumes, because of which you might be confused as to what does a resume actually stand for, or what is the purpose of the resume, and what are things that a resume shouldn't have. So let's break top 8 resume myths one by one. First myth is your resume is your autobiography. If someone has told you that your resume has to document everything that you have done in your career, no, that is not the purpose of the resume. It's only to highlight things from your career which are going to be relevant for the hiring manager or relevant for the company that you're applying to. A resume is not a place to include your personal information. So if you have if you have included relationship statuses, like I have come across resumes which say either married or single or whatever. So it's not your matrimonial site, right? So you don't need to include your personal information on the resume. With regards to your hobbies, I wouldn't say never include it, but again, it depends on whether your hobbies are unique and whether it talks about some sort of a personality of yours to the hiring manager or to the company. But otherwise, hobbies like listening to music, watching TV, reading, which are very vague and cliched, is common. Everybody listens to music. It's like saying brushing my teeth is a hobby. So you don't need to include hobbies which are redundant and cliched along with religious beliefs and relationship statuses. Another important myth is a lot of companies are laying off employees right now. And there is this notion being spread across that if you have a career break in your resume, or if you have taken a career break, either because you were laid off or because of personal reasons or COVID or whatever the reason may be, it is something which is negative, and you need to hide that in your resume. Regardless of whether you are a graduate or whether you are an experienced professional, there is nothing to be ashamed about having a career break in your resume. And you have to own the truth about that and present that in your resume and be honest about it. You don't have to exaggerate and make any false claims about your qualifications or experiences to stand out. I want to show you how, even if you don't have any experience, how you can create a resume that really stands out. Fourthly, I know all of you are from a very technical background, you're engineering students, but that doesn't mean you have to make your resume overly complex by using jargons and your industry based language. Because when you send your resume, a hiring manager or a recruiter who's going to read it may not be from a technical background per se. So if you have used too many jargons in your resume, it may not be easily understood. So you have to really make it simplified and at the same time impactful and professional for the person reading it. You don't have to use unprofessional or fancy fonts and colors to just get the attention of someone who is reading it. You don't have to use the same resume for every job. This is a big mistake I see people making, which is they create one resume and they use that for every job opening, every job application without changing anything. This is something which I'll be showing you as well in terms of what do you tweak in your resume, what do you change before you apply to different companies. And seventhly, you should use a specific traditional format for your resume always. You know, the typical format where they say you always have to start with education or always start with work experience. And, it goes like that. You cannot change your resume. That is a reason why you and your classmate or your friend might end up having the exact same resume. Your resumes will look the same, and only the names might be different. So it doesn't have to work that way because there are different formats that your resume can have. And today I'll be talking to you about functional resume formats and how to use that depending on your experience. And finally, your resume has to be created once and never updated. Not at all true. Your resume has to grow along with you, just like how you grow in your career. So it's very important to make sure that you keep updating your resume, very much like your LinkedIn profile, and any new achievements which is relevant in your career, you need to make sure you're adding it to your resume and reflecting that for your potential employers. So these are the 8 resume myths I just broke for you, which I want you to tell me in the chat box, which resume myth did I break for you? So we're going to have an interactive session so that I know that you are also listening in on the class. So out of the 8 resume myths, which one was broken for you? Which one was a myth that you realize that okay, it's a myth and I don't, it's not, it's a something that I haven't heard of and something that can be broken. Varsha says sixth one. Mhm. Yeah. Pugadanti says career gap is negative. Ananta says 3. Abhishek says 5th. Awesome. Yeah. Arunesh says career gap is negative. Brilliant, brilliant. So if at all you come across any of these information anywhere on the internet, know that this is a myth and it's not true. Okay. Now let's move on. Now, this is something that I want you to understand before you sit to write your resume, which is the amount of time someone spends to go through your resume. It's 6 to 8 seconds, which is typically the time where you would actually take your mug of coffee, sip, and keep it back. So it's only 6 to 8 seconds that hiring managers or recruiters are going to take to skim through your resume before they decide whether they want to read more details in your resume. So this is something that I want you to keep in mind. The attention span of the person reading your resume is very less and only 6 to 8 seconds. So, because of that reason, you want to make sure that whatever information you add in your resume is going to be relevant for the hiring manager or relevant for whoever is reading your resume. And it's organized in such a way that it's easy for the person to scan or to read. So, you don't need these information in your resume, personal details, unrelated hobbies, your full residential address, because hey, nobody sends post or letters anymore. It's always communication is via email. So they just need to know the city and the state that you are in. If you're applying to somewhere outside of India, just the state and the country, state and India would do. But otherwise, you don't need your full residential address. You don't need to add your references unless specified in the job description specifically that please provide your references. Take off your declaration, and also most importantly unprofessional email id. I remember when I was in college, my email id was forget username with number 4 in it, like get username. And that was a very unprofessional email id to have. I got my first job, but my uh, manager asked me like, why did you go with something that is this so unprofessional? And that's when I realized that hiring managers place a lot of importance to how professional you are. So I would always recommend having a separate professional email ID created only for your job search purposes, and make sure it has your first name and your second name in it. Right. Now, the second part of this masterclass is all about showing you how you can make your resume impactful, even if you have zero work experience. Like many of you filled the form for me, which I had sent earlier before the session, and your main concern was, I when I don't have an experience to talk about. So, one thing I want you to remember is experience is not just work experience. Your experience consists of so many other things, and it doesn't limit to just work experience. So, these are other experiences that you can talk about in your resume. Any sort of part time work that you did, which is, could be either paid work or unpaid work, internships, and again, paid or unpaid internship, the skills that you developed in your career. Did you sign up for any sort of certification courses or maybe non-certified courses through which you build your skills? Did you do any activities in college or outside of college where you developed your technical skills or soft skills? That is an experience. Volunteering or community service, any awards or certifications you got, personal projects and publications. I'm not talking just about the academic projects, but outside of that, did you do any sort of a personal project just for the sake of researching or to explore your passion? That can be included. Side hustles, group work at university, unique hobbies and interests. Even the fact that if you have tutored maybe your neighbor or your junior on the subject that you are studying right now, if you took classes for somebody, that also is an experience because it showcases how you have developed your skills and showcases your expertise in the industry. So don't limit to thinking that only internship, only paid internship or work experience can be added into your resume. Any experience which is going to be relevant to the position which you have developed can be added to your resume. So that is what brings me to the topic of a functional resume. Now, different kinds of resume formats. The typical one is called the chronological resume, where you list out your work experience at the top, then you go with the other sections. But for those of you who don't have a work experience or internship experience, you can go with a functional resume. A functional resume is one which highlights your skills at the top before any other sessions. Now, when I say highlight your skills or strengths, it shouldn't be just mentioning in one word what your skill is. It shouldn't be just analytical skills, research and problem solving, interpersonal, just leaving it at that. You need to also be very specific and give an example of an instance where you use the skills. Like, for example, if you look at this section here, this is a resume, a snapshot of a resume from one of my clients who's a graduate student who's applying abroad. Here you can see research and problem solving skills, identified cost control and reduction techniques, which led to the decline of expenses by 5%. So here, the skill is not only mentioned, but there is also a proof of how and when the candidate has used the skill and what results have been brought. So this is something which I would really, really advocate you to do, which is give a proof of your skill, mention your skill and give a proof of it in the skills section, and you can start your resume with this section. You don't need to have work experience to always do it. Now, how do you figure out what experience to add in your resume? I understand that especially when you're a college student and when you don't have work experience yet, you might be wondering into what kind of experience do I add? How do I figure out which sections to include and what to kind of not include in my resume? So how do you do that is to ask yourself these questions. What have been the highlights or the wins or moments of celebration in your college, in your college years? What are the things that you have been congratulated for? What have been the highlights? Have you won competitions? What are the highlights or moments of celebrations? It could even be something like a presentation you carried out, and your professor and your classmates were like, "Oh, this is really good stuff. I learned a lot of things from your presentation." That is a win. How do you stand out from other classmates, or if you have internship experience from other colleagues? Were you ever recognized by a professor or a team head for a job well done? Did you win any awards, certification, or any other accolades, a good percentile, a good grade? What new processes did you implement to improve things? What made you really great at what you do? Did you carry out some sort of a volunteer experience? And did that relate to your field of study? Did someone congratulate you? How did that go? Did you receive a positive feedback on your performance from your professors, from your team members? What was it about? What do I find easy that my classmates find difficult or boring? Is there any specific subject area which is so easy for you that you might have before the exams, your classmates will come and ask you, hey, can you explain this to me? I don't understand what is going on. And you've actually explained that, which means you have a better knowledge or grasp of that area than others in your class. So just self analyze and ask yourself these questions to figure out what is your area of expertise? What are the other things where you excel in, which is outside of just experience, outside of just work experience per se, and put all that information together, write it down or type it down somewhere, and then think which information out of these or which experience out of this is going to be relevant for the position I'm targeting, and pick those out and showcase those in your resume, like the functional resume I showed you earlier. You can categorize it based on your skills, and you can give examples of how and when you used it. Okay, before I move into the next one, just checking in that all this was good. That give me a thumbs up if this is kind of answered your question on um, what to do if you don't have solid experience or work experience versus information. Answering the question, give me a thumbs up, and so that I know that I can move on. If you want me to repeat something, you can just put repeat. I will repeat the slide again. So just checking in to see if this is something that you have understood. Meanwhile, I'm going to take a quick water break. All right, all good. Right. If you want me to, perfect. Thank you for confirming, Pugarandi. Awesome. So let's move on to the next part, which is make the ATS fall in love with your resume. Now, I have a question for you. What do you think is the ATS? Have you heard of what an ATS is? Have you heard this terminology somewhere? Can someone tell me the full form of ATS? If you haven't heard of it, you can say I haven't heard of it in the comments. But if you have, give me the full form of ATS. Yes, Arunesh, that's right. It's used by recruiters. Mhm. Don't worry, Pugrandi, I'll be talking to you about it in detail. Uh, right. Okay. So I'm guessing that most of you haven't heard of this terminology called the ATS. Now, ATS is a very, very important aspect to understand in order to make sure your resume gets selected by the target companies. Now, let's say most of you, I feel, are applying through campus placements, and some of you are job searching outside of that as well. When it comes to campus placements, they most probably may not use an ATS, but this is very important to know because as you progress in your career, after you work in your first company, you might want to change a company maybe after 5 years down the line or before that. And when you're job searching again, it's very important to know what an ATS is and how to make sure your resume is ATS friendly. Also, if you are job searching outside of your campus placements and going to apply on your own through job openings, you must make sure that your resume is ATS friendly to make sure it lands your target opportunity. So let's get started on what is ATS. Now, ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System or Applicant Tracking Software, and it's very important to make sure that your resume can be read by this specific software. Now, let me talk about what this ATS is. Now, ATS is a software basically which is designed by recruiters to make the selection process easier for them, because when a company is typically hiring, I'm talking about the big companies like Google, Amazon, Netflix, uh, Meta, and even mid-sized companies for that matter. When they are hiring, the expected number of applications is a minimum of 1,000. If you look at Google, it's going to be minimum of 5,000 applicants and above. So when there are so many resumes coming in from all across the world, it's not possible for hiring managers to read through each resume one by one and call the person for the interview. So, to make the entire hiring process faster and to save a lot of money, companies use this software called the ATS. And 98% of the companies worldwide use this software for the hiring process. So, how does the software work? Now, when all the resumes are applied, or when a company is hiring, let's say they get 100 resumes coming in, and all these resumes are first read by this software called the ATS, is a lot like Google and a combination of how the Google keyword search and the Chat GPT works right now. So it basically analyzes the language patterns in your resume and identifies the section headings, identifies the keywords that you have used in your resume, and goes through all the language part of your resume, and it gets stored in the ATS. Now, these hiring managers don't have the time to go through all 100 resumes. So let's say someone is hiring for an engineer, of an opening for an entry level engineer, and they need someone who has experience in Java. And so the hiring manager would enter in the ATS Java, and only those resumes which have the keyword Java in it would be shown to the recruiter or the hiring manager, because that's a keyword. For the company, they're only hiring people who has expertise in Java. They don't want anybody else. So this is a great way for the hiring manager to sift out resumes and filter out resumes of candidates which are eligible for the position and exclude those or dispose those who are not. So like this, hiring managers might search for any keyword, any industry specific keyword which are important for the position, or they may not even search for it. They would just automatically make the ATS sift out resumes which are most impactful and is best suited for the role. So 98% of companies are using the ATS. And because of this, if your resume is not ATS friendly, which means if your resume cannot be read by the ATS software, or if it is not picked up by the ATS software, it means it is not even shown to the hiring manager. Your resume needs to have a high ATS score in order to reach the hiring managers in the first place. So it's very important to make sure your resume is ATS compliant. Now the question here is, how do you beat the ATS software? How do you make sure that your resume is ATS compliant, that it reaches the hands of the hiring manager when you apply? Now this is a two-step formula to making sure your resume is ATS compliant. One is keyword matching, and secondly is right formatting. Now, I'm going to talk to you in detail about each of these, which is how do you find out the keywords and how do you incorporate the keywords in your resume. And secondly, how do you nail the formatting of your resume so that not just the ATS will pick it up, but also the hiring manager will be impressed by it. Now, let's start with keyword matching. Now, when I say keyword matching, what I mean by that is every company, when they're hiring, will put out a job description, either on LinkedIn, Naukri, or any other site that they're using. They will have a job description. Now, as a job seeker, you need to know what are the keywords that are used in the job description, because the keywords in the job description are most likely to be used by the ATS software when they're hiring and going through resumes as well. So first step is to identify the keywords in the job description and then use those keywords in your resume. When I say use, it doesn't mean copy paste all the keywords in your resume, but be strategic on which keywords are going to be important and to which ones you can exclude from your resume. Now, let me show you a live example of how you can find the keywords from the job description and how you can incorporate these keywords into your resume. Now, this is a typical job description for an electrical and electronics engineer based role. So what you need to do is that when you come across a job description, the first thing I want you to do is to copy the important parts, select and copy the important sections of the job description. So that includes responsibilities, skill section, certification section. Just copy all of that. You can either do it directly from the job website, or you can copy paste the job description onto another MS Word file and then copy the job description. And after you copy the job description, the second step is to paste the content into a keyword generator like this link here. Now, you can make a note of it, take a photo of this specific slide. It's called jasondavies.com/word cloud. Basically, what the software does is when you paste the content there, it will find out the keywords. Let me see if we can show you an example of this. Just a second. I want to show you on live how this happens. So I've copied the job description, and then this is the link to the word cloud generator. Okay, so this, I hope you can see the word cloud generator. Basically, what you want to do is just scroll down and copy paste the job description. You can do it for 1 to 3 job descriptions for similar roles. It doesn't have to be for just one job description. Let's say you're applying for electrical and electronics entry level job role. You can find out 1 to 3 job descriptions from LinkedIn, copy paste the important sections and paste it here. Make sure you change the number of words to 10 because we only need the top 10 words which are being repeated in the job description. I'm going to change the orientation because so that it appears straight. And then you hit go. So what this software has done, it has analyzed the job description and shown to you what are the keywords that the company has used. Now, this is a great clue for you to understand that, okay, in my resume, I need to make sure that these keywords are used, not in one specific section, but strategically used throughout your resume. You can see MATLAB being used, which means for the company that is hiring, they're only looking for employees who have expertise in this. Or they may not be only looking for them, but this is one of the keywords that they're looking for, which means you want to make sure that your resume has these keywords: simulation, experience, programming, MATLAB, electronics, electrical, things like that. It may not be possible to include all the keywords, but this gives you a good idea of what the companies are looking for and some of the keywords you need to include in your resume. Okay, so going back to the slide. Yeah. So first you copy paste the job description under the word cloud generator. You find out what the top 10 keywords are. And after that, the next step is to incorporate those keywords into your resume. Now here, what I've done is you can see a lot of points. This is not just in one section of your resume, but overall this can be in the experience section, project section, skill section, anywhere you want, but you want to make sure that the keywords like automation system, microcontroller, MATLAB, you can see how the keywords are repeated in the bullet points of your resume. This is something you want to do in order to make sure that your resume it is ATS compliant, because the majority of resumes out there are rejected by top companies because it's not ATS compliant. So you want to make sure that the right keywords are used in your resume. Now, next is about formatting your resume, because remember earlier I told you, in order to make sure your resume is ATS compliant, it should, one, the keywords have to be there. And secondly, the formatting has to be right. Now, the part about formatting is not only to make sure your resume is ATS compliant, but also when a hiring manager reads your resume, the formatting is not correct, they're not going to feel intrigued or interested to read your resume and may just discard it and go to the next one. So what do you mean by the formatting of your resume? Formatting is everything about how you place the content in your resume and how you put it together so it is visually appealing and visually impactful. Okay. So first one is font selection. You want to make sure that the fonts in your resume are easy to read and easy to scan. You don't need any sort of fancy fonts in your resume. So remove everything like these fonts on the right side and make sure any font you use is easy and clear to read. You don't have to always go with Times New Roman and Arial fonts. You can also go with fonts like Railway, Vedana, and Meriwether, which are also very classy and easy to read. With regards to the font size, the font of your content has to be between 10 to 12. Now, I've come across a lot of resumes just to fill up the space. The font size would be 15 or 20, but please don't do that. You want to make sure that it's legible, easy to read, and easy to scan. So anywhere between 10 to 12, 11 to 5 would be the sweet spot. So aim for somewhere there. And the maximum can be 12, minimum can be 10. White space and margins. One thing you want to make sure is that the space between the sections of your resume and the space between the bullet points in your resume is consistent. You don't want one section, one spacing to be, 1 inch and somewhere else to be 2 inch. Visually, when it comes to resume, it's very important to make sure it's visually impactful. So make sure that you don't crush everything into one page, and also make sure that the margins that you leave on all four sides and also between the sections is between zero point 0.5 to 0.75 and not more than 1 inch. One important thing to keep in mind is don't be too creative with the resume headlines. Now, sometimes I've seen resumes where instead of experience, or either academic experience or work experience, they go with headings like duties and responsibilities. Or sometimes instead of skills, people use primary technologies, or sometimes instead of education, they use academic background. Because remember, the ATS is going to be scanning the section headings, and the hiring manager might just enter education just to see what your education qualifications are. So if you've entered something different like academic background or something very creative, don't do that. Stick to the traditional resume headings and don't tweak it too much. So this is a question that I get from a lot of people, all the way from entry level to CXO positions people, but which is, does my resume have to be in 1 page or 2 page? To be very honest, it doesn't matter, because I have come across resumes which are 2 pages long, but the information is full of fluff and is not relevant for the position at all. And I've also come across 1 page resumes which are very impactful, very clear, very concise, and is very strategic. So it's not about the number of pages, it's about the quality of the content that you have placed in your resume. Let's say you put your information onto 1 page and there are more things that you want to highlight about yourself, which is relevant for the position. Even if it goes to the second page, it's fine, provided the information is important. However, for someone who is a recent graduate or who is a student, your resume shouldn't be exceeding 1 page, because I would say that on an average, most people, I've worked with so many resumes for recent graduates. So I know for sure that it's possible to fit your experience and your education projects and all the sections into 1 page and not more than that. So try your best to make sure you format your resume and make the headings and sections such a way that it's a 1 page, concise, impactful resume that really hits a spot for hiring managers who are reading it. This is, as a rule of thumb, you can go by something like this, depending on the years of experience and number of pages. It's typically till you have 5 years of experience, it's possible to put all your information into 1 page. If you have more, you can go to 2, 3, or even 5 page if you have 20 plus years of experience. Photo or no photo on a resume. This depends on the country or the state norms. Because if you're applying to for job or for higher studies in the US, Australia, in the New Zealand or the UK, you don't need to attach a photo because they have discriminatory issues going on. So because of which it's not a norm to attach your photographs, so don't attach it. If you're applying to countries in India, and also in France, you can attach a photograph, but the photo must be professional. It should be where it should be a professional headshot of you. If you're a man, you have to wear your blazers or at least a collared shirt. And if you are a woman, you can also wear something like a collared shirt, or wear something quite formal. You can take a look at the company's website to see what the employers there are wearing, and you can wear something similar. But if you're also applying for very modern industries or companies like Google, for example, they're more creative, the culture is very different. So you can go with something slightly creative as well. But if you're attaching a photograph, make sure that you follow the norms of the country and follow the culture of the organization that you're applying to. And this is a typical example of an ATS unfriendly resume. An ATS unfriendly resume will have icons, graphs, diagrams, and charts. What happens is, if in your resume you have included icons or graphs and diagrams, the ATS cannot read it. It's very much like if you upload a photo into ChatGPT, you cannot upload, first of all. And if at all, it's not possible, it won't read it. It's not designed to read any visual information. So if you have included icons, graphs, and diagrams and charts in your resume, the ATS will skip that section entirely, because of which, like for example, in this resume, the entire skills section would be skipped. It will assume or the hiring manager would assume that you don't have any skills. So you want to make sure there are no tables also. I've seen so many resumes where the education section is in a table. Please don't do that. I will show you very shortly how to put the education section in your resume, but just keep in mind that eliminate all kinds of tables, graphs, and diagrams, eliminate fancy fonts or creative section headings, and also make sure that you have used keywords in your resume. You don't have to make it visually visually scary like this to make sure it gets the attention of the hiring manager. Now, reminders on how to beat the ATS software. Make sure you label your experience, your skills, and your education sections correctly. Make sure you keyword optimize your resume. Find the top keywords by using a word cloud generator like the one I showed you earlier and include those in the bullet points. Don't use tables because it won't be read by the ATS. Eliminate images, diagrams, and graphics. When you upload it, when you attach it or send it to whoever you're sending it to in a PDF format always. The problem with the Word format is depending on the laptop or the computer of the person who is opening it, the whole layout of the resume might get toggled or changed because which makes sure that your resume is a PDF file less than 2 MB when you're sending it to companies or attaching somewhere. Okay. So before I move on to the section, I'm going to take a water break. All right. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to go into each important section of your resume, and I'm going to be showing you how to structure or how to write the content in each of these important sections. Okay, let's get started. Now, for a graduate, being a graduate right now, either a recent graduate or someone in your in the fourth year or first year, you are a student and going to be a recent graduate, you need to have four sections, must have sections in your resume to make sure it's ATS compliant and also to make sure the hiring manager or decision makers love your resume. The first is the upper third. I'll talk to you very shortly after this on what the upper third means and what you need to include. Secondly, education section. Third is technical skills, because all of you are from a very technical engineering background. You need to have a technical skills section. And fourthly, any experience, not just work experience, but it can be volunteering, internship, part-time, whatever experience that you have had which is relevant for the position, you can add that in your resume. So these are the four must-have sections for a graduate resume. Now let's go through each of these sections one by one, and I'll show you how exactly to write these. Now, what is the upper third of your resume? Now, the upper third, what I mean by that is a very top part of your resume. Typically, when someone looks at a piece of paper or looks at your resume first, is the first thing that someone is going to see before they go to the other sections in your resume. Now, your upper third of your resume has to be really, really impactful. It has to be really to the dot so that the hiring manager really gets hooked on to know more about you by reading the upper third. Now, this is a snapshot of, let's say I am going to write my own resume. This is how the upper third section would look like. Now, let me show you what are the different elements in the upper third of your resume. So first you have your full name. You can have just below your name, you can have a 3 to 5 word headline that best describes what you do. You can say electronics and electrical engineering graduate. You can have civil engineering graduate. What is it that you do? You can also include any technical tools that you're an expert in this particular headline. It's again optional. If you have a detailed technical skills section in your resume, you're going to detail show it. You don't have to talk about your technical skills again here, but typically, what is the first thing that you want someone to know about you before they read the rest of your resume is the headline. Then a professional photograph. Again, you have to make sure it's aligned to the country or state norms. So if it is not, you don't need a photograph. Your contact information that includes your email ID, your location, uh, your LinkedIn profile URL, your phone number, and any other profile link which kind of shows your expertise. Let's say you have an Instagram page. Let's say you're a mechanical engineer and you have an Instagram page where you talk about how you have helped, you have kind of worked for other workshops, you have created a model, you have portrayed all your expertise on an Instagram page. You can put that link here so that the hiring manager gets to see your work. If you have a portfolio of your work, you can put the link here up as well. So these are different sections. that creates the upper third of your resume. This is the most important section in your resume because immediately somebody gets to know your name, what are you an expert in, what is your professional summary. I'm going to talk about that very shortly, but professional summary is basically that shows what are you an expert in, the summary of what is it that you do, what you're an expert in, your contact details, everything in one snapshot. They need to get an idea about you. Now, I have a question for you. If you have already made a resume, does it start with something like this? Or if you don't, if you've not made a resume, have you come across resumes that start with something like this? Career objective, saying, I am looking forward to working in an organization that offers a challenging opportunity to blah, 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 blah. And I want to achieve the goals to the best of my potential. Have you come across resumes like this, or have you created a resume which with a heading that looks like this? Let me know in the comments. Yeah, Abhishek says yes. Granthi says yes. Just come across this type of resumes. Even resumes from CXO level CEOs have something like this, to be honest. This is a very, very common mistake. And most resumes have something like this at the very top. Yeah. Okay. So since you're in this masterclass, you're going to learn how to not start your resume with something like this and really make sure that you stand out amongst your other classmates or anyone else who's applying for similar positions. Now, the problem with something like this, like a career objective or a career statement that talks about what you want to do, is it's cliched. Everybody's resume starts with this. So, as a hiring manager who's going through so many resumes, the moment he or she sees something like this, I lose is you want to really make sure you get the attention of the hiring manager. Remember, the upper third has to be to the spot. And if you use information which is redundant or outdated and cliched, it's going to be a wastage of prime real estate in your resume. Real estate is the most important part of your resume, and this is the prime real estate. And you want to make sure that your resume doesn't start with, I am looking forward to getting a challenging opportunity, use the best of my potential, and these typical words that everybody uses. So, what can you write in your professional summary, which is the top part of your resume? If you don't have a professional summary, you want to make sure that you answer these questions first. What are two words that best describe your personality or your soft skills? Are you someone who likes working in a team? Are you self motivated? Are you a hard worker? Are you a diligent person? Are you someone with strong communication skills? Make a lot of things or words that best describe your personality. Secondly, what do you do? What do you study? What is the course that you're doing? What defines you as a professional? One top accomplishment that you're most proud of. What is this one thing that you have done till now in your college which you are most proud of? Project work or your grade. It could be somewhere where you have developed a skill, a certificate you got, anything. But what is the one achievement you're most proud of? What are the key skills that you have? By skills, I mean also technical based skills. What are the skills that you have developed? And going forward, what is your goal? Why do you want to work in this industry? And why do you want to work with a specific company you're applying to? Now, these are questions I want you to answer first because this is what we're going to be including in your professional summary. It's a combination of all of these 3 to 5 sentences that describe all of this. That if when someone reads just this, they get an immediate understanding of what is it that you're good at. Now, let me show you an example of a well crafted professional summary of an engineering graduate with no formal work experience but self driven side projects. Actually, this is a professional summary that we worked together to write for my brother who was applying for an organization in Sweden and he wanted to come up with a strong professional summary. So here you go. Let's read it together. Dedicated and diligent engineering graduate on a mission to leverage strengths in analyzing ferrous alloys and in-depth knowledge of the microstructure analysis of cast iron to kickstart my goal of becoming a metallurgical engineer. Collaborating with notable companies like Volvo Trucks and Scania, I increased the silicon levels of cast engines to 4% and thermal conductivity by 30. Going forward, my goal is to combine my passion for metal casting and manufacturing, top notch analytical and logical skills, and high self motivation to work closely with experts from automotive industries and tooling businesses. You see how well written that is. Like immediately by reading that, you get an idea of the personality of the candidate. What does he or she do? What is the goal? What are the strengths? What are the skills? Why are you passionate? This is something I want you to add on your resume. Something like this. Give it some thought because it will take some time to come up with, something like this. But you have Chat GPT. All of us have Chat GPT, so make a use of that. As in, I'm not saying just copy paste what it shows you, but tell it that okay, these are your strengths, this is what you're good at, and see what it comes up with. So answer these questions first, put it on the Chat GPT, refine it, and see what comes up. And there you go, you have your professional summary. Okay. All right. Now let's go to the other sections in your resume. Now, one of the most important sections right now for you is your education section. And right now you need to make sure it's at the top of your resume. You can either go with a single column resume, which is sections one below the other, or you can go with a double column resume if you have more information. So the top sections for you would be in being a recent being a college student would be education section and also your skill section. You want to make sure both of these below after the upper third, both of these are immediately visible to the hiring manager. Now when you present your education, you can either do something like this, which is the title of your course, what you're doing, the title of your course in bold, and below that the university or the college, and below that the date of your course, the start and the end in month year format. This is one way of putting. Another way of doing it is similarly have the title of the course in bold, the name of the university, then you can have the year, and below that you can have 1 to 3 bullet points. Let's say you have scored 85% or above for any specific subject, you can put your CGPA. If you have specialized in certain core subjects, which is very important for the role you're targeting, you can put the core subjects next to each other. You can add your project title, any other recognition that you got, you can add it as bullet points below the education. If you have those, you can put it all under education, or you can go with something like this. I hope you've taken a photo of this. Moving on, skill section. Now, being from a very technical background, engineering background, I'm sure you would have specialized in a few skills by now or tools by now, and you can show all of those to a dedicated skill section. There are two ways to do it. The first way is you can name the skill or name the technical skill or tool that you have, and next to that you can showcase your proficiency in that by using these dots in your resume. Now this is there are a lot of resume templates out there which you can use, which are either for free, could be paid, which have these dots. But let's say this is too complicated for you and you don't want to do something like this, you can also go with something like this where you in bullet points talk about the technical tools that you have. You can put a heading for the technical tool, and below that you can mention in short bullet points what are the tools that you are proficient in the core technical skill section. But this is very, very important to have in your resume. One thing I want you to keep in mind is, please, in your skill section, do not add soft skills. Do not add team worker, good communicator, analytical skills, and just mention it like that in your resume. Because as a hiring manager, I want to see proof. When did you use high analytical skills? How did you develop your team working skills? So if you are adding soft skills, elaborate it like how I showed you earlier. If not, go with the technical skills section and you can elaborate that something else. But I would generally tell you not to include your soft skills in your skill section and have that only for your technical skills. And of course, other sections that you can have to showcase your experience. You can have a publication section. You can mention the title of your publication or your article and have a link. By the way, you can include links in your resume if you have put up some sort of a visual work or something that shows your expertise, a book or an article. You can link that to your resume. You can talk about the workshops that you have attended, any sort of online or offline workshop where you have developed your skills. You can have the name of the workshop and one line description of what the workshop was. All your projects can be in one section. Both academic and non-academic projects can be mentioned in a section like this, with talking with a link and whatever tools that you used. And this is one thing which we actually use for one of my clients, which is a kind words section or a testimonial section. Let's say the principal of your college or the person that you interned with said something, gave you a recommendation on LinkedIn, and you want to really showcase that because it talks about your technical skills and what a great person you are. You can even add that in your resume, provided it is relevant for the position. So these are other sections that you can kind of use in your resume to make it impactful. All right, we are almost towards the end of the masterclass, and here I'm going to show you how to brand your resume. Now you've already heard of the word brand, right? There are so many famous brands around the world, like Puma, Nike, Adidas, and also brands like KFC. I know there are a lot of brands out there. So brands are things which are very popular. You would have definitely heard the name of. And similarly, you want to make sure that your resume is branded and it really has that value. And when someone reads it or sees it, they feel that, oh, this resume is really amazing. There's some sort of professionalism and branding to it. So how do we exactly brand your resume? Because remember that when you're applying for a job, you're not the only one applying. There are thousands of applicants, your own classmates, you're going to have students from other colleges, you're going to have a lot of competition, and you want to make sure your resume really, really, really stands out to get that interview offer. And that is what I'm going to be teaching you in this session, which is how to brand your resume. Now, this is a little bit of human psychology. Let's say we go into a store and we see two perfume bottles with the very same perfume in it. We as humans, let's say the price is same, everything is the same. We as humans would always go for things that look expensive. When we see the first bottle, even if it's the same perfume, we'll say, hey, this looks cheap and ugly. I'm not going to go for this one. And we'll go for the ones that look pretty because we like things that seem expensive from the outside. So this is fundamental of human psychology. So how do we include this part of human psychology to create our resume? Now, you can have the same education and the same certifications as 1,000 other people, but when you make yourself look expensive, you can instantly stand out and be in demand and premium for hiring manager. When I say look expensive, I'm not talking only about your resume here, but also about your LinkedIn profile, your cover letter, your entire branding suite, your entire career and job searching suite has to be branded. It has to look expensive. So someone feels, or a hiring manager feels, this person is premium. I want to really have this person to our company versus some other candidate. Now, here are examples of two resumes, both with pretty much the same content. If you are a hiring manager, I can place my bet that you would go for the one on the right because simply because it looks premium, it looks expensive, it looks much more impactful. So you want to make sure that your resume looks impactful, looks well structured, is visually appealing, and doesn't look like something on the left because then you have lost the attention and of the hiring manager because people always go for things which are premium and looks expensive. So always make first impressions count. Remember, someone presenting a resume is a lot like walking in for your first interview because person reading a resume is going to form an impression in the first 6 seconds. And people make split-second decisions, and therefore you want to make sure that you prove that in your resume. And according to an article in Harvard Business Review, all it takes is the first 15 to 20 words in your resume to make an impression. That is why I stressed earlier as well, your professional summary is very, very important because that's the first session in the upper third someone is going to read about you. And that 15 to 20 words is going to make or break the impression, and you want to make sure it really stands out. So bottom line is your resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profile. Here the masterclass is only about resume. But overall, you want to make sure that all these three are impressive and they're updated and visually impactful. Now, when it comes to the visual part of your resume, you can either go with a traditional template. What I mean by traditional template is that it has black and white in color. It's either black and white or it's blue and white. That's a traditional template, and it has. It's not about which sections you use, but I'm talking about the visual part of it. It can either be traditional, like the one here with just two colors, or it can be a less traditional resume like the one you see here. This is one of the resumes I created for a client of mine, where you can see that this resume is color branded to this client's target organization. Can you guess in the chat box, depending on the colors here, for which organization this might be targeted to? Okay, this is an organization. The name starts with S. The logo of this organization has the same color of shade of green and white. And we have color branded this candidate's resume to the target organization. Any guesses? It starts with S. Oh, Induja, very smart. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So this resume is branded for the brand colors of Siemens. So here, this is where the candidate was applying for an extremely competitive role, and we wanted to make sure that both the content and the visual appeal really stood out, and that's why we went forward with the branding part. It's not mandatory to do this. Again, whether you brand your resume or not for the logo of your target organization depends on the industry. If you're going for a very traditional, you can definitely do this for Google. A lot of my clients are landed jobs in Google, and we color branded their resumes. But if you're applying for very traditional organizations where being creative is not very much appreciated, I would say go with the traditional layout, either blue and white or black and white. But if you're going for companies which have a vibrant culture, much more open culture, you can check out their website to see what is the feel of the culture of the company. And if you feel that has that vibe, you can always color brand your resume for that. One more thing I wanted to keep in mind. I know this session, sorry, I know today's session is only about resumes, but as being recent graduates and those who are about to start your work immediately or maybe in quite a few months, you want to make sure that you have a proper LinkedIn profile, because the whole way of job searching has changed tremendously. Is no longer where a company posts a job opening, you just send your resume and you wait for the resume call. That was 20 years ago. Now things have changed. You need to be more proactive in your job search, and that starts with having a LinkedIn profile and knowing how to leverage your LinkedIn profile. Because according to a study published by Forbes magazine, those resumes which have a link to a comprehensive LinkedIn profile, those resumes which had a link to the LinkedIn profile in it, and whichever resume had a complete and comprehensive LinkedIn profile, had 71% higher chances of getting called for an interview. I'm talking about, if you look at entry level roles, 15.8% higher chances if you have a complete LinkedIn profile. So this is extremely important. Make sure along with your resume, you also work on your LinkedIn profile and make sure you're up to date and you know how to use it for your job opportunities. Now, secondly, about branding is leverage the experience you do have, because a lot of us, especially in college, we have questions like, I don't have the experience, I don't have the skill set. What do I do with the things that I do have? Okay, just notice the time is 7:44. I'll rush through. I'm not sure if we're taking up too much time. Um, do I have like 5 more minutes, Anushraj?
Yes, ma'am, we have.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. So yeah, so you want to make sure that you leverage the experience that you do have and you brand and market the experience you have, because resume at the end of the day is a marketing document. It's about how you market yourself as the best candidate for the role. Like for example, let's say both of these images here are those of Apple products. The Apple, I think it's called the it's on the iPhone. It's called the Apple. Okay, let's call it the Apple Music Player, because I don't use iPhone and I don't know how it works. So I think I'll call it Apple Music Player. And let's say Apple is advertising the product. If they say something like you will get storage of 1 GB music in your device, it doesn't sound very exciting, right? It doesn't really make you feel excited or curious to know what it is. But if they said, as they already do in their advertisement, 1000 songs in your pocket, it's the same information. 1 GB equals 1000 songs. But the way you present that information, the way you present the content or your achievements in your resume is very, very important to position you as an expensive and premium candidate. Let me talk to you in more detail about how do you make sure now you have identified your achievements, you know your experience, you know your skill set. Now it all comes to how do you write it in your resume? How do you write it in such a way that it's so impactful and irresistible to a hiring manager? Now, first thing is when you write your resume is not to list out your responsibilities. Responsibilities are duties, are things that you do every day, or things that very much like in the Apple iPhone example, storage of 1 GB music is a responsibility. You want to make sure that you present it like an achievement, which is 1000 songs in your pocket. Let me show you more examples. Now, if you look at the left hand side, planned many events. It is a responsibility, something that you did. You want to make sure you convert that into an achievement, which means how well did you do something? Because of something that you did, what kind of results came out of it? That is an achievement. So, same point, raised rupees 50,000 INR by selling out tickets to a 200 raised. How many tickets did you sold out? How many people came to the college fest? Very specific, very clear, and really sells you, really markets you, really brands you. One more example, wrote articles in technology. It's a responsibility, something that you did in college. You need to make sure you change that into an achievement. Wrote 8 articles in technology, generating 1000 page views, 1000 likes, and 2700 tweets. You see how, when it comes to achievements, the information is very, very specific. You need to add numbers, you need to quantify it. Add numbers wherever impactful. If you work with a team, how many members were in your team? If you wrote articles, how many? And what was the article about? And because of that article, what happened? Where is a link to the article? Make sure you talk specifically about how well you did something and what results came out of you doing something versus just writing what you did. That is a responsibility, and that will not impress a hiring manager or will not impress a decision maker. You want to make sure you change those into achievements. Now, things to keep in mind when you're writing anything in your resume, you want to ask yourself these 3 questions. One, what is the benefit for the company? Because of something that I did, either on my own or with my team, how is that going to benefit the company I'm applying to? Second, what is the impact or outcome of the work I did? What kind of results came out of the work I did? When these examples, 50,000 INR was raised. Second example, 1K page views, 1000 likes. It can be even be something like you wrote an article which was read by 50 plus students in the college campus and they really liked it. There's an impact. Thirdly, how can I add metrics to my achievements? Where can I add numbers to my achievements to make it impactful? This is something I want you to keep in mind. Your resume is not to list your responsibilities, but list your achievements. And remember this example I gave about the product and how companies market products. Now, how do you make your resume glow? How do you make the content in your resume glow? You want to make sure that you add impactful achievement statements as bullet points in your resume, not responsibilities, but achievement statements. Now, what is the formula for an impactful achievement statement? Very, very important slide, guys. I want to take a photo of this when I show you. One, start the bullet point with an action verb, with a powerful action verb. Instead of words like I handled, I took care of, responsible for, make sure you begin with a strong action verb. Yeah. Secondly, after your action verb or power verb, as I like to call it, after that, make sure you talk about what did you do? What was the action? What was the task? What did you do? And thirdly, because of the action that you did, what were some of the results? These results can be made more specific with numbers, percentages, a range, amount, or any sort of data relevant to your industry. So this is a step, the formula for adding impactful bullet points in your resume. The same formula is followed in the previous example. Raised is the power verb. Rupees 50,000 INR by selling out tickets. So here, what you can see is you can either have power verb followed by result followed by action, or you can do power verb plus action plus result, depending on which information you want the hiring manager to see first. Because in a bullet point, hiring managers may not read the entire bullet point from start to end. So you want to make sure in one single bullet point, whichever information is more important for them to see, you start the bullet point with that, and the rest can be after that. So raise 50,000 INR is a result. And how did that happen? By selling tickets to a 200-person college fair. So result plus, power verb plus result plus action, or power verb plus action plus result, depending on what is higher importance of what you have done in that particular situation. Let me give you a few examples. Made company homepage for a client, that's a responsibility. Redesigned company's homepage and lead generation forms that led to XY increase in this and XY increase in leads. Another example is handled Python programming language, that is a responsibility, versus developed a web scraping program in Python to help the company develop download public data, including over 10,000 company restrictions and stock codes. That's an example of an achievement. Thirdly, work with clients like Volkswagen and increase annual revenues responsibility. Achievement would talk about how did this person work with the clients, what was the increase in annual revenue, will be very, very specific. So how, I hope by now you have understood the difference between responsibilities and achievements. And you want to make sure that in your resume, you use the power verb plus action plus result, or power verb plus result plus action, always in any bullet point you add in your resume. Yeah, we are there towards the very end of today's session. And before I conclude, I want to remind you of something, which is make sure that you don't spray your resume everywhere and pray that you will land the job. Because majority of job seekers, either they are lazy to change the resume, either they're lazy to tweak the resume depending on the job opening, or they don't know how to. What happens is they just have one resume, they go to LinkedIn and easily apply the resume to every job opening. This is not going to work for you, because we've already covered the fact that companies use ATS. You need to have the keywords in your ATS, in your resume. Secondly, the hiring manager is only going to spend 6 to 7 seconds on your resume. So if you have any information in there which is not relevant for the position, they're going to lose interest and go to the next resume. So you want to make sure you always customize your resume depending on the job role. Now, what I mean by customizing it is you want to make sure that, think of the job description as a question paper. You want to make sure that your resume is an answer paper where whatever things that they've given in the responsibilities and skill section, you have addressed that in the resume. You want to make sure your entire resume is provides proof points to the requirements in the job description, and it needs to have professional summary, skills, and experience. You should always make sure that these three sections, your professional summary, skills, and any other experience section, is always tweaked depending on what is the priority for the organization. Now, going forward, this is something which I would recommend you to do. You're just starting your career now. You are just in college. After this, you're going to get into the workforce. You're going to develop in your career, and you're going to definitely achieve so many things as you grow in your career. So let's say you enter into a company, and 7 years later, you want to change to another company. This is just example numbers. But 7 years later, you want to start job searching and go to another company. When you sit down to write your resume at that point in time, you may not remember exactly what you did. And that is a very, very difficult thing. So in order to avoid that from happening, what I want you to do is to document everything that is happening in your career. Open up an Excel sheet, and you can create columns like, for example, education, projects, um, co-curricular, academic, not whatever section headings you want to put there. But make sure you record every single thing that happens in a career with specific information in that Excel sheet. It is not to share with anyone, but for your own reference. Whenever you need to write a resume, you can always refer this master document, and you can pick and choose things from there and put it into your resume, and in order to make it impactful. All right, I'm going to skip to the next part because we're running short of time. Um, so just to recap what we did today, we covered a lot of ground. We busted 8 resume myths. We talked about how to make your resume amazing, even if you have zero work experience. I showed you the formula to beat the ATS software, what the ATS software is, and how to beat the ATS software. I showed you how to discover relevant keywords from the job description and incorporate those in your resume. We talked about the 5 must-have sections in a graduate resume and how to craft each section with examples. We talked about how to brand your resume, like how other top companies brand their products to make it irresistible. That EM stands for employer, to make it irresistible to an employer. And finally, we talked about the importance of customizing a resume for future roles. Before I take up all your questions and answer those, I want to remind you that let's stay connected. If you have any questions on what was discussed here, or if you want to further ask me any of the questions that might come up when you're job searching, feel free to connect with me via Instagram. My handle is resumes by Gowri, or on LinkedIn, which is Gowri Resume Expert. Also, if you tag me in one of your stories with a photo or video of today's masterclass, you are eligible for a free gift from me, which is I will be auditing So with that, we conclude today's session, and I will take up the questions that you have. And Anushkaraj, where do I find the questions? Where do I see this?
Yes, ma'am. I have posted the Slido link in the chat, and the participants can ask their questions. I'll share my screen so that you will see the questions.
Mm.
Is my screen visible?
Yes.
So yeah, you can ask the questions by either scanning this QR code or by using the code here.
Right. So first question is, how do I create a professional email? Right. So a professional email is an email ID which has your first name and second name. Any email ID with your full name is a professional email ID. So you can just like how you usually create your Gmail account. Make sure it has your first name and second name. You can use different combinations, like it can be Gauri.ram or Ram.Gauri, or if that is already taken, you can use a set of numbers, which is I would say Gowri.ram 2701 because that's my birthday, or you can go with something which any numbers which is relevant to you, but make sure you have the first name and second name at gmail.com, and there you go. It's a professional email ID. Uh, can you list your achievements from school days in your resume? This depends on which stage in your career you're in. If you are, since right now you're finishing your college, school was not too far off. And if you have any important achievements from your school days, like for example, you led a team, you were you were the class rep, or anything that shows any leadership skills, problem solving skills, analytical skills, which are important for your target positions, anything from your school days, that way you can add that in your resume. But again, always ask yourself, is the information going to be relevant for the target position? Only add it in that case, otherwise you don't have to. The more emphasis is going to be on your current education, on your the course that you're doing right now. From school days, you can definitely add it, provided it is important and relevant for the position. Where do I Next question is, where do I create a resume from? All the websites I try has only the paid version. I find it very difficult to find attractive templates for free. Okay, so uh, okay, to be very honest, I don't think anybody gives it for free, and the ones that are there for free out there aren't that great. But what you can do is, let's say you like a resume that you see, a template that you like, you can try recreating that on Canva. Again, but you need to have that expertise of using Canva to do it. But this is a shortcut that you can take. You can try recreating the resume on Canva and download the resume in PDF format, and you can include all the information that way. If you don't know, let's say you don't know how to design and all the templates are too expensive out there for you, go with a simple Word document, like on open up a Word file and go with a traditional resume format. And when you download it as a PDF. But you want to make sure that all the section headings, the font size is correct, the gap between the resume is correct, or the sides of the resume, the gaps are very nice, or it's accurate. You want to make sure all of these are done if you're doing it in on your own. If not, I would say buy a resume template. You can there are resume templates available at prices starting from 500 onwards. At least I do that for my clients, where I give them resume templates at 500 rupees. You can do that, or if you find it very difficult to design a template on your own, you can best way is to be purchasing them, but make sure the template you purchase is editable. You don't want to buy a new template for each and every resume, so it has to be editable template. Otherwise, use Canva to create a resume. If that is still difficult, open up a Word file, create a resume. Make sure that, see, more than the visual aspect is important, but also the content. Make sure the content is impactful and download that resume in a PDF format. All right, next question. Are we allowed to use the diagrammatic representation for skills? No, no, because uh, when you say diagrammatic, if you are referring to charts and diagrams and graphs and things like that, not at all, because companies use ATS. And the ATS software will not read these diagrammatic representations. So let's say you want to include these and there's no other way out, and you want to showcase something that is which is diagrammatic, I would say go have two resumes. One resume without any sort of diagrammatic representation, which you can definitely use to apply to companies. But if you want, you can also have one more resume with graphs and charts in it. But typically at your stage in career, it's not required. Graphs and charts are usually used for CXO level position resumes, where they need to show the career trajectory or the growth of the company. But in your case, you don't need to. So skip diagrams in your resume, even for skill section. The only thing you can do is, as I was showing in one of the examples, you can show the proficiency of a skill. Let's say, for example, MATLAB or Java, you want to show that your proficiency in Java is 3 out of 5. You can put those dots and you can have the first three colored. Again, that's only available in a purchased template. It's not possible for you to create it from scratch. So in that case, what you can do is to have a skill section and have the title of the skill, and then you can write it down saying, I have a proficiency of this much and what you have used the skill for. Next question, can we include any extracurricular achievements or participations? Yes, absolutely. You can definitely include anything that you have done outside of your college work. This could be maybe you organized an event, you visited an industry and you learned something. It could be a participation in sports. You can definitely include that, but there's a way to doing it. Let's say, for example, you are very active volleyball player and you want to showcase that in your resume, you can have a section called interest, and below that you have to first mention which skill you developed. So in this example, I would say leadership skill, and then say that developed leadership skills training a team of 5 players or participating in the national volleyball championship. So you want to first highlight which skill you developed and what was the activity or what was the extracurricular thing that you did. So you definitely can include sports or anything, but you have to first show which skill did you use for it. And you also want to make sure that skill is important for the organization. Because sometimes, let's say you might have participated in a dance competition, but it's all about how you showcase that in your resume. Maybe for this in company that you're applying to, the company wants someone who has very important, let's say, team working skills. And this particular dance competition you took part in, you had to, come up with the choreography of the dance with a team of 5 people or with a team of however number of people. So then you can definitely showcase in your resume and talk about how you develop the team working skill. So it's all about thinking, okay, what is the extracurricular activity? What skills did I develop? Is it important for the company? If the answer is yes, definitely add that in a new section. Uh, okay, next question. What should be the basic format of a cover letter? I can talk about a cover letter for 1 hour, just like how I did his masterclass right now. If you ask me the format, um, it's not a copy paste of your resume. I'm not going to talk about all of the cover letter. You can definitely follow me on Instagram. I have a lot of content around cover letter, when to post a cover letter, when to attach a cover letter, and the difference in the two. But let me quickly answer your question. The purpose of the cover letter is not the same as a resume. The resume is to showcase your professional parts of your career, to talk about your professional skills. But a cover letter is to purely talk about your, or more, I wouldn't say purely, is to talk more about your personality and motivation for the role and for the industry. So this is to show more of your personal side and talk about, let's say you are an electrical or civil engineering student. Why are you passionate about civil engineering? And going forward, what kind of difference are you going to make in the world by working in this industry? And let's say you're applying to a specific organization. Why do you want to work with that company in the first place? What is your motivation? So a cover letter is always, it's like a letter. If you're writing a letter to your family friend, your family, or some, we don't write letters now, but let's say, so many years ago we used to write letters. It's always addressed to a single person, right? So similarly, the cover letter must be addressed to someone. It could be a hiring manager, or it could be the directors of the company, the founders of a company. Let's say you want to work with a startup, you can write a cover letter to the founders of the company and talk about why you want to work with that company. What is your motivation for working with them? So you want to make sure you start your cover letter with a hook and get the attention of the cover letter by talking about what is your motivation for the industry, what is your passion for working in that company, and what connects you to that company. So, to give you a very high level overview, the difference of a cover letter and resume are different, and the format of a cover letter is very different from a resume. It has to be semi formal, it has to have a flow to it, it has to be conversational in tone. You can reach out to me on Instagram. I'll be more happy to share the content I have created around this, because there's so much to talk about around cover letter. Next question. Will there be any change in the resume creation process in case of higher studies? So if you are applying for higher studies to, let's say, to an organization or university abroad, first thing is they don't use an ATS. So you don't have to worry about uh, customizing your resume with the correct keywords, because as of now, but there's been a talk that universities like Cambridge and Oxford, they're going to use ATS shortly. But otherwise, you don't need to think about the ATS, the keywords in the resume. Second would be, as far as the university is concerned, there is a lot of emphasis on the education that you have done, education projects and publication, anything academic related. So in your resume, or actually academic CV, as I would like to call it, because there's a difference between resume and academic CV. In your academic CV, you want to make sure that anything and everything which is academic and studies related is portrayed at the very top first. So your education, your projects or publications, your skills must be at the top, and everything else has to be below. That is a rule, because that is the highest priority for the university. Secondly, when you're creating a CV or academic CV for higher studies, the number of pages don't really matter. So your academic CV can go to 3 pages also, because you have to really detail your project work, what you did in your college, what were the skills that you developed. It can go for 3 pages also. But resume, it has to be within 1 page. The attention span is lesser, because universities, when they are taking in applicants, they don't receive tons and hundreds of applications. The chances are lesser. They will have time to individually go through the application. So you can make it slightly more elaborate when compared to a resume. Yeah. So yeah. So next question. I was referring to the 5 point system you had showcased. I don't really understand. I don't know which one you're talking about. So I'll go to the next question. If the recruiter is your classmate, how do you deal with this? Okay. How can your recruiter be your classmate? Okay. Again, not don't understand this question. Can you repeat the five must-have sections in your resume? Surely. So the five must-have sections right now, being a graduate student, you're either a recent graduate or a college student. As of now, the five must-have sections you need to have is first is the upper third, which is the professional summary, the name, the contact details is the upper third of your resume. You need to have the education section in your resume. You need to have the skills section in your resume or the tool section in your resume. You need to have the other important sections. The other sections, what I mean by that is anything which is projects related or skills, not skills, projects, volunteering experience, internship experience related. You need to have those sections in your resume. And yeah, that's it. It's not the five, four must-have sections. You need four must-have sections in your resume. The upper third, education, technical skills, and experience. These are the four must-have sections. But again, when I say experience, it can be project experience, volunteer, internship, skill, anything else, any other experience that you have built. You can elaborate that into one or two, but four, as a rule of thumb, you need to have these four sessions that I mentioned earlier in your resume. Yeah, awesome. I think that all of the questions. Don't worry, even if this session is over, you can reach out to me via Instagram and you can ask me your questions there as well.
So yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for accepting our invitation and for being here with us this evening. That was indeed a great session. It was really very informative, and we were made aware of all the myths and do's and don'ts for a resume. And special thanks for introducing us to many new things such as a functional resume, ATF, ways to crack it, word cloud generator, and the achievement statement formula. So I guess as students, being aware of all these will definitely help us craft a perfect resume and thereby helping us to land on our dream job.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anusharaj, and to the whole department for organizing something like this. It is a huge pleasure to be part of a session like this and to be able to help you because I know most of you are going to start job searching soon, and it's my honor and a privilege to be able to impart that knowledge to amazing college students like yourself. And I wish you all the very best in your career. May you land the job that you're after.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Shall I exit the meeting? Do we have something else planned?
Nothing, ma'am.
Okay. All right. All right then. Bye bye. Take care.
Yeah, ma'am. Bye. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.